Coming up, new federal funding cuts could impact hundreds of programs in Kentucky.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. More cuts to federal funding are putting humanities programs in Kentucky at risk. This is just one of the many funding cuts by the Department of Government Efficiency that we've covered in recent weeks. Alyssa Williams checked in with several organizations today about how this new round of cuts could impact our communities.
Many may say humanities help to shape who we are.
What we also say in return is that humanities is really what makes us all human.
But now, countless organizations across the nation that promote humanities are at risk of disappearing.
To read a termination letter and find out that overnight, a budget which allows us to provide many programs across the Commonwealth has been cut to zero.
Earlier this month, Kentucky Humanities Executive Director Bill Goodman learned funding from the National Endowment for the Humanities, or NEH, had been completely cut. He says the money they receive has gone to hundreds of programs that focus on history, culture, and literacy.
We're in the dilemma right now of trying to figure out if we can survive, how long we can survive.
Chad Hunter with Media Arts and Education Center Appalshop says funding from the NEH has been going towards restoring countless recordings and artifacts damaged during 2022's flooding. But this cut means all restoration efforts have been halted.
Our flooded collections are at these laboratories with work paused, and so they are actively degrading. So it's the collection that suffers, it's Appalshop, it is the public and history that suffers, because we're talking about the largest collection of media pertaining to Appalachia in the world.
Both Goodman and Hunter say they're working to evaluate what changes need to be made to continue the work they're doing.
So we're not giving up hope. We believe that there's a path forward.
Alyssa Williams, WKYT.
Hunter says in a letter from the NEH, they were told their funding was terminated because their grant no longer fits the agency's needs and priorities of the grant's agreement. It also says the NEH is repurposing its funding in a new direction that furthers the president's agenda. A Johnson County man was sentenced for his role in the 2022 death of his daughter today. Stacia Collins was found dead in August 2022, a couple of miles from the spot where police say her father, Stacy Collins, attempted suicide. He was later arrested and charged with her kidnapping and murder. He entered a guilty plea last month. Today, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for at least 25 years. Tim Clark, the lead investigator, was chief deputy in Johnson County at the time of the murder and says the agency and former Sheriff Doug Saylor were instrumental in the successful conviction.
We recovered her body, and it took a toll, a lot of stress on us over that, and he made sure that I had all the time that I needed to do a thorough investigation, which has shown, the outcome.
Clark, who is now serving the Magoffin County Sheriff's Office, says he is happy with the sentence, saying Collins will likely die in jail. In Boyd County, a doctor faces up to 3 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to fraud charges. Federal prosecutors say Dr. Matthew Lewis sold misbranded drugs at a weight loss clinic. Officials say he bought the weight loss drug semaglutide from an unauthorized supplier or suppliers. His practice made nearly $250,000 by selling it. Lewis will be sentenced in August.
Wow, what a beautiful day. We had temperatures in the 50s and 60s. Tonight's not bad either. I stepped outside earlier this evening. We had clear skies. Temperatures right now in the 40s and 50s. 50 in Hazard, 54 in Jackson. Boonville, good evening to you. You're at 45, 48 in London, 50 in Somerset, 53 in Monticello. All is quiet on live pinpoint Doppler radar. It's that time of year where we start to get the false returns on the radar scan as we help you plan your evening and overnight hours. We'll see overnight lows in the upper 30s and low 40s. And we take a look here at your overnight hours. There we go. We'll go to 52 by midnight, 43 by 6 a.m. Plenty of sunshine as we go throughout the morning and afternoon hours. Now that's going to come with a caveat. And the caveat is this right here. We have that frost advisory that begins at midnight and goes until 9 a.m. for the majority of the WYMT viewing area. All of our Kentucky counties is now under that frost advisory. I'll have your latest First Alert forecast plus a sneak peek at Easter weekend coming up in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thank you. Francis Diner in downtown Hazard reopened this morning 2 months after it was flooded. Customers were at the door at 7 a.m. ready to get their breakfast fix. Frances herself was also there, excited to see her customers and serve food once again.
Miss me back, and I miss them, and I love them very much.
To see them reopen, we talked to our kids at practice yesterday. It shows a lot of perseverance and a lot of toughness, and you know, they didn't have to reopen this place, but they knew how important it was to Hazard.
Bo Duke himself, John Schneider, was also a customer today. Francis Diner is open 7 days a week for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Another new federal lawsuit is aiming to reinstate visas for hundreds of college students and staff members. The Trump administration revoked more than 600 international student visas earlier this month, including some at UK. This lawsuit, filed in Atlanta, claims the Department of Homeland Security used traffic stops and dismissed cases to justify revoking visas. It hopes to stop revocation for these students and reinstate visas that were already revoked. With the status of some students' visas still hanging in the balance, many international students may have questions about what this all means for them. Madison Carmouche talked to an immigration attorney about what this may mean for Kentucky and beyond.
In early April, University of Kentucky President Dr. Elan Capelouto said a small number of international graduate students' F1 visas were revoked, and he offered students the university's support. Lexington immigration attorney Heather Hoddy says she does not represent any of these students, but understands the uncertainty international students might have.
They're in the middle of a program, you know, whether it's a four-year program, whether it's a master's program, and so all the money that they've spent, all the tuition, all the fees, all the time and energy, and they can't even go back home with a completed degree.
Hoddy says the government does have the right to revoke a student's visa if they are not following the law or the regulations of their educational program.
If they violate that for whatever reason, then that could be, they would be given a notice of intent to revoke or intent to deny their visa. But it's usually with some type of due process.
She says without a clear understanding of the reason why some students' visas were revoked, schools in this country might be losing out on study abroad interest.
So that is a major deterrent, and so that's going to really hurt us, not just socially and educationally, but also economically, because you know that's a big pull for these universities.
Hoddy says when a student is here on a student visa, they should be able to study knowing they are protected by the Constitution.
It can mess up somebody's entire life, not just their studies, and so this is definitely going to have far-reaching consequences in the future.
In Lexington, Madison Carmouche, WKYT.
Hoddy recommends students traveling back to their home country at the end of the semester make backup arrangements. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is considering changing its recommendations for who should get an annual COVID vaccination. It currently has a blanket recommendation that everyone 6 months of age and older get annual shots. It is considering switching to a more nuanced, risk-based recommendation. It could recommend those over age 65 and anyone with compromised immune function get annual shots. The change would align more closely with guidance given in other countries. A panel of independent experts that advises the CDC on its vaccine recommendations is weighing the pros and cons of changing to risk-based recommendations. They are scheduled to vote on it in June. In what is shaping up to be a battle pitting the judicial branch of government against the executive branch, a U.S. District Court judge today found the Trump administration in probable contempt of court. CBS's Erica Brown has the latest.
Two planes carrying more than 200 migrants to El Salvador last month could land the Trump administration in criminal contempt of court. In a 46-page decision issued Wednesday, U.S. District Judge James Boasberg said probable cause exists for contempt proceedings as he accused administration officials of defying his order to return deportation flights rushed to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act. Boasberg said, quote, "The Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders." The White House says it will appeal the decision. This comes as the Trump administration doubles down on their deportation of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to a prison in El Salvador in March after what the Justice Department called a clerical error.
Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again.
The White House slammed Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen's visit to El Salvador Wednesday as he met with the Salvadoran vice president in hopes of securing Abrego Garcia's return to the U.S.
It's appalling and sad that Senator Van Hollen and the Democrats applauding his trip to El Salvador today are incapable of having any shred of common sense or empathy for their own constituents and our citizens.
Senator Van Hollen has been chronicling his journey on his X account.
I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful.
Van Hollen also met with U.S. Embassy officials in El Salvador and says so far his requests to meet with Abrego Garcia or arrange a phone or video call with him were all denied. Erica Brown, CBS News, the White House.
New Jersey Senator Cory Booker is also reportedly considering a trip to El Salvador, as are some House Democrats. Coming up on Mountain News at 11, an East Tennessee pastor is safe after he was kidnapped in South Africa while giving a sermon.
And make sure you have the sunglasses ready to go as you head out the door tomorrow. Details coming up.